Hello, and welcome to the session on deploying and managing your Windows Virtual Desktop environment. I'm Pavitra, Program Manager with the Windows Virtual Desktop team, and joining me today is Maggie Dakeva.
Hello from me too. I'm Maggie Dakeva, and I'm a Program Manager on the Microsoft Endpoint Manager team.
In today's session, I will be going over the new features and integration with other services we have added to make your environment more manageable using the Azure portal. Maggie will be covering managing your environment using the Microsoft Endpoint Manager. Since this is a virtual session, I cannot ask you for a quick show of hands, but I really hope that we have quite a few customers in our audience who have deployed either the classic or the ARM-based Windows Virtual Desktop environments or both. Today, I'll be giving you a brief overview of Windows Virtual Desktop, and then the rest of the session will be filled with demos. So Windows Virtual Desktop Classic went GA in fall of 2019, and since then we have gone GA with the newly integrated Azure Resource Manager as of July 2020. The ARM integration brings along with it some really cool features like using Azure role-based access control to restrict admin permissions, assigning user groups to app groups, using Azure monitoring and log analytics, very similar to other Azure services, etc. All of this is already available as part of the Azure portal. And apart from that, we have also added support for ARM templates so that you can automate your deployment and your management of the virtual environment. I have already covered the whole deployment process in a video that we did as part of the virtual event that we had in spring. And that also includes configuring basic configuration of your Windows Virtual Desktop environment. In today's session, I will be going over some configuration as well as management capabilities to improve your experience using the portal. So once you have deployed your Windows Virtual Desktop environment, you would need to configure it and make it available for your end users. This entails assigning users to app groups, adding more session hosts if needed, updating the desktop app group name to be more specific to the audience, etc. In the upcoming demo, I will be showing you how to assign user groups to app groups. If you have a personal desktop host pool, how to assign a VM specifically to a particular user, and how to enable your diagnostics and validation in your virtual environment. So without further ado, let's get on with the demo. So the first thing I'm going to be demoing is how you can publish user groups to app groups. So I am going to list app groups here, and I'm going to select an app group for me to assign to user groups. So I'm going to select this one right here, SKTFD-DAG, and then I'm going to navigate to assignments. It's a desktop app group, and it already has one user assigned to it, but now I'm going to be assigning a user group to it. So this is a user group that's already available. If you have others, you're welcome to go ahead and search for it, but I can select that. And then if I press select, then it should within a couple of seconds be added, and users of this particular user group will then be able to see this particular desktop from SKTFD desktop app group. All right, so that's about publishing user groups to app groups. Now I'm going to talk to you about assigning specific VMs to users. I'm going to go to host pools now, and I'm going to navigate to a host pool 0807 HP. And I'm going to show you that I have a desktop app group here, and it's got 3 users assigned to it. If I select manage right here, you can see I've got 3 different users assigned to the app group. If I want to assign a VM to this particular user, all I have to do is select assign VM here. It will take me to the session host grid. And then if I just click on assign as part of a VM that you want specifically assigned to the user. So if you have multiple VMs, you basically select assign against the VM that you want assigned to a user. And then you search for what user you want selected. In my case, I just have 1 user remaining, and all I have to do is select, and then this user will be assigned to this VM. And the next time the user logs into this particular app group, then they will land only on this particular VM because it's a personal desktop environment. This is available as part of your direct assignment capability as well as automatic. Even if you select automatic here as an assignment option, you will be able to directly assign, and we do this so that if you have lots of users, but you want to directly assign VMs only to a very small subset of them, you can go ahead and select the assignment type for a personal desktop host pool as automatic, but then for that small subset of users, you will be able to directly assign a session host VM to. All right, so that's about assigning VMs to specific users. Now let's move on to how you can enable validation environment. Again, you go to host pool, you click on properties, and when you do, you will be able to select what you want to do with the validation environment. It gives you more information about exactly what this means. What this means is that if you enable a validation environment on a particular host pool, you will be able to test any kind of service updates that we provide on a regular basis first. So we always roll out service updates to host pools that have validation environment enabled, and only then we roll it out to host pools that do not have that enabled. That means those are production host pools. So if you want to test your workload for business continuity on any kind of service update, we urge you to always enable validation environment on at least one host pool and have users regularly using it, so that any kind of service update you will see, there is an anomaly or there is absolutely no problem and everything is going smoothly. All you have to do for that is go to validation environment, select yes, and then select save. Once you do this, then from then onwards, the minute it's saved, 0807 HP, my host pool, will now get service updates first. Earlier, it would get probably 2 weeks later than any other host pool validation environment, but now it will get it first. So that's about validation environment. I'm going to also talk to you now about diagnostic settings. So I mentioned earlier that we have good integration with Azure Monitor and Log Analytics. For you to be able to use them, you should first enable diagnostic settings on your Windows Virtual Desktop object. It's available for all objects which are high-level objects, which is host pool, application group, and workspace. All you have to do is select your object. In my case, it's a host pool. And then you navigate to diagnostic settings. And then in this case, I already have a diagnostic setting available. But if I don't, all I have to do is say add diagnostic setting, give it some kind of name, and then choose what kind of information I want piped into this diagnostic setting, and then choose destination. You can choose Log Analytics as a destination. You can store it in a storage account, or you can put it in Event Hub. In my case, I only have Log Analytics set up, so all I will have to do is basically just select my Log Analytics workspace and then hit save. The minute I hit save, information from checkpoint and connection logs will go directly into this particular workspace. You can have multiple workspaces or multiple destinations for every different kind of log here. And if you want to know more about exactly what these different logging functionalities are, please go ahead and visit our documentation at aka.ms/wbddocs, and you will be able to get more information on this one. So it's as easy as going here and adding the setting, and the minute you have the setting, from then onwards, all your admin operations and user operations will all be piped into your destination, and in my case, that's Log Analytics workspace. Now that you have configured your environment, I would like to talk to you a little bit more about how you can manage your environment further. We have a bunch of capabilities that we have added for your advanced management, and some of them have been listed here. So if you want to update your VMs as part of a host pool with an updated image, you can use the shared image gallery to do so. If you want to restrict permissions for your admins, you can use the role-based access controls to do that on the Windows Virtual Desktop objects. You can use either built-in roles or custom roles or both on the host pool, app groups, as well as workspace objects. If you want to troubleshoot and visualize the environment and the data in the environment, you can do so using log analytics. And we have example queries there that will help you get started with the troubleshooting. We also have a workbook that has been published from our field that can help you get started with visualization, and then further on you can customize it to suit your needs. We also have a good integration with Azure Advisor and Service Health services that are already part of Azure. And Azure Advisor gives you important information on best practices with Windows Virtual Desktop environment, and it also gives you recommendations on how you can improve performance, reliability, and security. And lastly, with Service Health, if you want to keep up to date with all the current and the past issues that are being that have occurred on Windows Virtual Desktop environment, we suggest that you keep an eye out on the Service Health alerts that we keep sending, and I will go over all of these things in the upcoming demo. So the first thing I'm going to be demoing is how to update your VMs in a host pool with a new image. For the sake of this, I'm going to be using the shared image gallery because it's actually easier for you to update your images in WVD using shared image gallery. So I had an original image which was 1.0.0, and it was just a plain vanilla Windows 10 multi-session image that I got from the gallery. After that, I updated my image to include Word, and the new version is 2.0.0. For the demo, I have already created two VMs. Demo base 1 has image 1.0.0 and demo base 2 has image 2.0.0. So right now I have placed demo base 1 with drain mode switched off. That means user sessions will land on demo base 1 and user sessions will not land on demo base 2 because I have enabled drain mode. Now let's say that you have just one VM or set of VMs with an old image. For you to update the VMs, the first thing that you will do is you'll of course go and create the new image in the shared image gallery. Once that's available in the location where you want to create VMs, then you will go ahead and press add. And this add VM workflow, what it will do is it will take in information about where you want the VM to be created. In my case, I want it to be in Vestios because that's where my Active Directory is. It asks you how many VMs you want created with this image. And it will not allow you to choose the image. But the good thing is that since I already created my first VM for this host pool using shared image gallery, the subsequent VMs will also use the same shared image gallery, except it will always use the latest version. So now when I create it, after I put in information about my Active Directory and the domain credentials, now when I go ahead and create the VM, it will always use 2.0.0. Now, let's say later on I have another image update and it's called 3.0.0. At that point, if I go and do an add VM, at that point, all those VMs will be created with 3.0.0 image. So for the sake of the demo, I've already created my second VM with the second image. So first, let me show you what happens when the user connects to demo base 1, right? So I have a user here and I'm connecting, and it should prompt me for my Active Directory credentials if I have not already saved it. In my case, I have saved it already. And it is showing me a desktop, right? And in this desktop, all I want to do is basically show you that there is no Word because I don't have Word added to my image because it's just the plain vanilla image with no Office. So you can see that I just have WordPad here. Now I'm going to go back to my admin screen, click on this particular VM, and it should show me that there is an active session. I'm going to log off all active users. I'm doing that now, but for you, your maintenance would be more like you send a message letting them know at some point you'll be logging them off. And, after that particular time arrives, you log them off. By the time your users must have already saved their work and they should be good to go. The next thing I will do is I will place the old VM in drain mode. I don't want to remove it because you want to make sure that everything works with the latest image, right? And then I will place the second one, which is the VM that's been created with the latest image. I will remove it from drain mode. So you've seen that I flipped the drain mode on them. Now let me go back here and connect to the VM using the same user, because you want the same user connecting to a VM, right? So I'm gonna again search. Once the VM is up and running, I'm going to search for Word, and at this point Word should be available because it was available in the VM image that was used. All right, so let's see. Right here you can see that Word is available and you have performed a successful update after a couple of users validate everything. As long as you are happy with the quality of the image and the VM, you're welcome to go and remove all the old VMs, because all the old VMs should now have no users. They've already been placed on drain mode. All you need to do is remove the old VMs. And once you remove the old session host, that means it's the internal representation of a VM in WVD, you can remove them and then physically go remove the VMs with the classic image from the respective resource groups. So that is how easy it is for you to update an existing host pool with a new image. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to talk to you about is access control. I mentioned to you earlier that Windows Virtual Desktop has complete support of Azure's role-based access control, and that we support both built-in and custom roles. I'm going to show you how you can easily, granularly select the roles that you need for your admins. So I have a host pool here, and in the host pool, all I have to do is go to access control. When I go to access control and check on the role assignments, this particular host pool already has a bunch of role assignments that are available. So the first one is this particular admin. It's called admin at the domain, and that's what I've signed it in as. And that admin has complete owner access on the subscription. That means this admin can do everything. They can do read, write, delete on every single Windows virtual object that is available in this particular subscription, as well as assign roles on these desktop objects. I also have another admin called test session admin, and this test session admin has a role named WVD user session manager. So if I click on that, I want to just show you exactly what this role entails. What this role entails is basically just read on the host pool, and then the admin can do read write on the session host only as far as the user sessions are concerned. So the user session itself, they can do read write and delete. So that means this admin cannot do read write on the actual host pool. They cannot add VMs. They cannot do any of those things. The only thing they can do is they can log off users from the user sessions. So I'm going to now show you how this whole experience is from the test session admin perspective. So I have signed in as test session admin, and I have already gone to my host pool. So I can show you that flow. If I go to Windows Virtual Desktop and I go to host pools, I will not be able to see any other host pool other than this one, because this is the only host pool that I have been assigned this role to. So I click on that host pool, and you can see I've got a bunch of errors here, and these errors are only because I have no access to the application group, so I cannot do anything. But I do have access on the session host. So if I go run on the session host, and you can see that I cannot do an add, I cannot do a delete. So if I click on this, I cannot do a delete. I cannot do anything on that particular session host. The only thing that I can do is I can go and log off a user. So if I have a user here which was active, then I can go and log off a particular user. That's the only thing that I can do right here. And this is an easy way for you to set access permissions on your admins. All right, so that's about access control. You can use built-in controls also, as I've shown you that I've got owners here. I've got another specific admin that I have got here with custom roles. You can use contributor, you can use reader, you can create your own custom roles, and all of them are applicable on WD objects. All right, let's move on to log analytics and advanced troubleshooting. Okay, so I have got my log analytics workspace already set up. I talked to you earlier about how important it is for you to set up diagnostic settings on every single Windows Virtual Desktop object that you have. In my case, I have set the diagnostic settings to always pipe data to log analytics workspace that I have set up. So if you have done the same thing, and let's say that you want to understand how to use it, all you do is you click on that particular workspace and then you go to logs. When you go to logs, you'll get a pop-up here saying, hey, you want to use example queries. To make your life easier, we have added example queries under category. So if you go to category and then you go all the way down and you select Windows Virtual Desktop right here, you will be able to see multiple queries that are already available. So if you want to, for example, do top 10 connection errors and you run it, if you have a lot of usage and then you are able to run it, you will actually see a chart here with information on how many queries, how many connections were there and how many of them had an error, etc., etc. And all of them, we also have the actual query here. So you're welcome to go and update it and make it your own. These are just example queries to get you started. In my case, I'm going to talk to you about specifically how to troubleshoot a particular user connection. So I have a user, and that user was trying to connect to a particular desktop, but then that desktop was just not available. And let's say that is the complaint that you get as an admin. All you have to do is get one of the example queries, update the user's UPN as needed, and then run it. Once you run it, I'm going to close this one so I can show you. It shows what are the different connections that this particular user made, whether it was an error or not. In my case, I'm only looking at errors here, right? So it's going to only show me the errors. In my case, it shows me 2. And this one clearly says that the user could not connect to a particular session host because there is no session host available in this particular host pool. So if I go back here, if I just expand that particular error and I scroll down, it tells you exactly what the resource group is, what the host pool is, and why a session host might not be available. It gives you all this information. Now, if I go back and look for this 2226, right? Let's go here and navigate to host pool and go to this particular host pool 0226RG. It shows right here, there are no session hosts. And when there are no session hosts available, then obviously a user cannot get access to the desktop or the remote app that they have access to in the backend. So it's as simple as that. And this is going to help you using log analytics and doing the first level of troubleshooting is going to help you narrow down the cost and see if this is something that's a service error, or if this is something that is a configuration error on your side. And it's quite easy to get all this information since we have example queries here. Our documentation also covers quite a lot of these queries. So you're welcome to use our documentation. It also gives you more information on exactly what these failure information is, etc., etc. So please go ahead and set up your diagnostic settings and use log analytics to do your first level of troubleshooting prior to talking to CSS about any issues. Okay, now moving on to Advisor. I talked to you earlier about Windows Virtual Desktop having integration to multiple other Azure services. One such Azure service is Azure Advisor. Now, Azure Advisor is something that's available to all services in Azure, and Windows Virtual Desktop just now started integrating with it. So as part of that integration, we have a bunch of recommendations specifically around best practices. That's what we have started with, but we will be adding more recommendations around reliability, performance, and security as time goes by. So I just want to show you an example. So once you go to Advisor, and you click on any of these categories, you can see a bunch of recommendations. For Windows Virtual Desktop, today what I'm going to show you is the operational excellence. That means best practices. Here, I have one particular one for Windows Virtual Desktop, which basically says there is no validation environment enabled. So if I click on that, it tells you exactly what is the problem, why you need to enable it, and how you can do so. You can click on this for more documentation information, so you can read up on this. You can also go here and actually click on the recommended action. It takes you in to create a new host pool. It takes you directly to the Windows Virtual Desktop Hub, and you can create a new host pool where validation environment is enabled. Or you can just go to a host pool here and enable the validation environment. But essentially, it just tells you that you need to go and enable at least one host pool with validation environment, because that is a best practice that we are recommending you as a customer to set up. We have other performance and reliability recommendations that are coming up. So please go ahead and visit Advisor at least once or twice a month to understand how you can improve and optimize your environment. The last thing I'm going to talk to you about is service health. So Azure Service Health basically is a service that lets you know if there is any issues, ongoing issues that are happening with Azure services. It's also a way for the service team to actually talk to you about any kind of information that you want to give you, where we want you to take some action so that it improves your experience. Here, I have gone to health history, and I want to show you that we have had two different kinds of alerts that we have sent out from Windows Virtual Desktop. So I have got a bunch of other alerts. I'm going to talk to you about these two alerts. The first one is an informational alert. And if you go over this, it basically just tells you that we went live with, well, the ARM support, and all the host pools have been placed in validation environment. So if you want to move them out of validation environment, all you will have to do is go to properties and disable validation environment. And that way you can select exactly what host pools you want in production as opposed to validation. So that's one of the informational messages that we sent out. The other one is actually an incident. In this case, there was an incident where customers were not able to create host pools using Azure Portal. And so here, this information gives you, this alert gives you more information on exactly what the outage was, what the root cause was, how we mitigated it, etc. So we again urge you to set up alerts so that you will be able to get this information in a timely fashion, and you don't have to be taken by complete surprise at a much later time. So Advisor, Service Health, all of this integration has been documented in our documentation page. Please go ahead and visit it, and I urge you to set up your alerts and monitoring as soon as possible. I hope you learned something new about managing Windows Virtual Desktop and how we have integrated with other Azure services. Now I'm handing it over to Maggie so that she can talk to you about managing your environment using Microsoft Endpoint Manager.
Thank you, Pavitra. In this next section, I'm going to show how to manage Windows Virtual Desktop session hosts with Microsoft Endpoint Manager. This year, we've invested in supporting more Windows Virtual Desktop scenarios, which allows you to secure and provision your session hosts with policies and apps, so your employees can stay productive while working remotely. With the latest Configuration Manager update, you can now select multi-session as an OS version and target your multi-session remote desktops with configurations optimized for those scenarios. And in the Microsoft Endpoint Manager Admin Center, you will see optimizations for your Windows 10 Enterprise remote desktops later this year, as well as support for multi-session for shared scenarios, which will be available in public preview. Both will be supported for hybrid Azure AD joined virtual machines. For information workers, we recommend that you configure dedicated single-session remote desktops. And with Microsoft Endpoint Manager Admin Center, you can make sure the session hosts are always secured with compliance policy and conditional access, as well as configured with policy and apps in the same way you manage your physical devices today. Furthermore, With the new improvements we're adding, you will no longer need to worry about non-applicable policies, which means you can use your existing policies which you created for physical devices and simply apply to your remote desktops as well. That way, onboarding with Windows Virtual Desktop is even easier with MEM. Now, I'd like to show you what the experience looks like in the MEM Admin Center. So here I've navigated to the devices list, where you can already see I've enrolled a few remote desktops. And you can also see that they're immediately evaluated for compliance, just like my physical devices. And I can further dig into the compliance policy status for every single one of them. And troubleshoot if potentially any of the policies make the device not compliant. Also, since these are dedicated personal devices, if I have any existing compliance policies that are targeted to user groups, they will also automatically apply to the remote desktops used by those users, just like with physical devices. In addition, with Microsoft Endpoint Manager, I can easily customize the end user experience without requiring any custom images. For example, let me go and configure Teams for my users. I navigate to Apps and then select Windows 10, Microsoft 365 apps, and I'll stick with the defaults for the purposes of this demo, and I'll only configure Teams. Under Assignment, I decide to configure for a user group, since it's easier for me to organize my users in groups than the devices. And then I create a policy. As soon as I log into the Windows Virtual Desktop session, policies will come down and the app will start installing. I've also configured here some device restrictions policies to help limit access to the Settings app, set some browser settings, and also set a custom background. Now, to show you what that looks like for the end user, when an end user logs into their device, they'll immediately see their custom background as well as any device restrictions I've applied. And here you can also see the Microsoft Teams app has already installed. And for shared scenarios, you'll be able to configure pooled multi-session remote desktops for first-line workers, call centers, etc., all with the Microsoft Endpoint Manager Admin Center. That way, you can cut costs while also allowing task workers to stay productive and be able to use any device to access the company resources in a secure way. In the initial release of multi-session support, devices will be userless, which means no user configuration will be applied. So all of your policies will need to be configured in the system or device context and applied to device groups. You will also be able to enroll those session hosts automatically without any user logon required. So they're ready to use as soon as the user logs on. And to further simplify the policy creation experience, we'll provide a new UI, which allows you to pick policies applicable to multi-session, as well as easily recognize the ones that apply in the device scope. And this is a preview of what the new policy creation experience would look like, to give you an idea. This design is still not finalized, and you'll be able to try it out, the new UI, later this year in the public preview. And to wrap this session up, all of the features that were shown in the earlier demos are already supported in the Azure portal, and you can go ahead and try them out. You can also read more in the documentation. And for the multi-session support in the Microsoft Endpoint Manager, look out for the release announcement, which will be coming out later this year.
Thank you for attending our session. I hope you have seen something of great value here for your environment. Thank you, and I hope you give it a try.